Welcome to the Book Bungalow's virtual author event with Michael Blaine, author of The Invisible Walls of Dannemora, inside the infamous Clinton Correctional Facility. There's the book. I think that's his chin. This is your picture, isn't it?
My picture.
Yeah.
3 months old.
It's interesting. I've read it, and it's interesting to see the prison from the point of view of a guard or a correctional officer for a change. We usually see it just from the point of view of inmates or lawyers or who are visiting prison. Anyway, my name is Tanya Mills. I'm the owner and manager of the Book Bungalow in St. George, Utah, Southern Utah's only independent bookstore, with offering all new books and a full range of events. And right now we are open and taking precautions, but we're doing our events virtually probably through the end of the year. You can order Michael's book through our website, and I'll put the link for that in the chat box as soon as I can. I'll also post it to I'll also post a link to his website, and I'll put both of those links at the end of this recording so that before it's posted to our YouTube channel, it'll be on there, and those of you who've registered can receive all of that as soon as it goes live, probably Sunday. In The Invisible Walls of Dannemora, Michael tells his own story of becoming a corrections officer in New York State and learning all about how a prison is or should be run. He advanced at Clinton Correctional Facility, as well as other prisons in New York, and was promoted through the ranks over the course of 26 years, only to retire as a lieutenant from Clinton 10.5 months before the first successful prison escape from that facility, which occurred in 2015. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Besides being an author and former corrections officer, Michael's even better known today, I think, as an entertainer touring all over the country. And I'm also going to ask him about that in a few minutes. As we talk, if any of you have questions, type them in the chat room and I'll try to get to them. Okay, let's begin. First, let's assume that I and we have never heard of the escape by these two prisoners from Clinton in 2015. I did because I always watch the news, but some don't. So what are the main facts of what occurred as relayed by the media to the public, whether it's correct or incorrect? But how did the public learn about this?
I'll tell you how I learned about it. That morning, through a series of text messages from a friend of mine, I woke up, my phone, I had text message. My phone was literally blown up with text messages detailing what had transpired. And as I'm reading this, I said, there's no way. This is a terrible joke. And as I'm going through it, I'm reading it, and it's impossible. It's impossible. There's no way. It's impossible for this escape to have happened.
Well, what were the outline details of the escape as you first learned about it?
That two inmates had escaped through the backs of their cells in A block. They had gone through the tunnels and through a steam pipe and under the wall, then up through a manhole cover into the village of Dannemora.
And how big was that pipe?
18 inches.
These guys were not fat.
Matter of fact, well, inmate Sweat, David Sweat, and Richard Matt. Richard Matt was the inmate that ended up being shot and killed. He had to lose a great deal of weight in order to make it.
Oh, okay.
So that was in the escape report, losing weight.
And they did this during the night?
During the night. And yeah, so they had done it during the night. And like I said, I was reading this, I go, there's no way. It's impossible. It's impossible for this to happen like this. But they had so many things fall in their lap.
Okay, just to hold on to that for a second. So what did the media get wrong about it?
Oh my gosh, everything. They tried to sensationalize the least little thing. I was at a gym and it was on every news station. and I had my headphones in, and I'm on machine, and I'm working out, and it got so bad I pulled my headphones out and threw them. And the woman next to me asked, because they were talking about Joyce Mitchell, the female employee that assisted these inmates who made this escape.
And what was her employment? What was her job there?
That's the thing. That's one thing they got wrong. She was a civilian supervisor for that shop, that particular tailor shop. She supervised inmates sewing.
Okay.
She, would teach them, work with them, and she supervised it. Another thing that the public isn't aware of is there was always an officer. Every shop has an officer assigned to it. And so there's always an officer there a couple of feet away. And a lot of times the desks would be side by side. So at one point, when I threw my headphones out, they were saying that she worked in the facility leather shop, which didn't make any sense whatsoever. And when a major news network finally tracked me down somehow through the retirement system, we had this very same discussion. They said, "Will you talk to us?" I said, "I'll talk with you. I'm not sure I'll talk to you." And why not? I go, because you people are taking everything, and you're just filling up the airwaves.
Yeah.
They said because nobody will talk to us. I said, that's because you're putting out bull. I go, so that's from that. They asked me, they go, well, can we use you for story accuracy? Where we would contact you, we have this piece of information. Can you verify if it's accurate, or where should we clarify things? I said, that I'll do. And from that moment forward, all of a sudden their stories started to get more accurate. They'd call me and say, we got this information. Is this possible? I say, oh my God, no. You're looking for the big sensationalized story. It's much simpler.
And how many days were they on the lam, so to speak?
23 days. 23
wow.
days.
I forgot that. It was that long?
Yes.
And at what point did the one get killed? How did he get killed?
Inmate Richard Matt. Oh gosh. I'm gonna try my facts straight. They had broken into a hunting camp out in the middle of nowhere. There's no paved roads out there. These are camps out there, and there's hunting clubs. They broke in. This is where the issues where the media or the miniseries had wrong. There was no power. There was no running water. There was no TV.
Oh.
Yeah, everything would have been run by generator. And but they did the majority of the hunting club were correction officers. What are the odds? What are the odds? And I'll get into that more about that too. And they found a single shot shotgun. And I know the officer that owned it. The single shot shotgun, inmate Matt. And so at that point, inmate Sweat and Matt had separated, they'd split up. Richard Matt had shot at a camper. That's well documented. And that's when I believe it was the Border Patrol Special Operations Team.
They closed in and shot him?
They shot him. He had the weapon.
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming he pointed at them, and they shot and killed him.
Okay.
And I believe that was on day 21, I think.
Okay.
I believe day 21, approximately day 21. And on day 23, as I described in the book, inmate Sweat was shot and captured by a state police sergeant who just happened to be a weapons instructor. He picked the wrong person to run from. Was
he heading up to Canada?
Actually, I believe he was shot and captured in Constable, which isn't that far from the border, but it's even closer to the Akwesasne reservation, Indian reservation, Mohawk reservation.
So you think he was going to hide out on the reservation?
I
Mm,
would.
mm. Okay. Okay.
They're not fans of the government
Yeah.
either. So I can only speculate. If they're looking for you, you can come with us. I
Uh-huh.
I'm speculating. I mean I've done business up there. I've known people up there, but there is an element that is very rebellious.
Okay. And now okay, so the media got things wrong. What did the miniseries got wrong? Did they get anything really right that the media hadn't?
The only thing that the movie series got right was the North Yard. They actually filmed in the prison yard, the
Oh,
North
they
Yard.
got access to do
They
filming.
and the governor gave them unprecedented access to New York State Correctional Facility. New York State does not allow cameras of any type in their facilities. Cell phones, electronic devices, cameras. I mean, it act of God. It has to be approved by the central office. Now, the prison church is well documented. The Church of St. Dismas, the Good Thief, which is just an absolute treasure. The history, it's so rich in history, and
Yeah, I
just
was hoping you'd put a picture of it inside the book, but
I well, actually, I'll send you a link. There's a YouTube video, 9 minutes long, detailing the history of that church,
that would be cool. Thank you.
and it's just mind blowing. I could never. That video truly depicts the Church of St. Dismas and how rich it is, how incredibly ornate and just irreplaceable. It's a special, special place.
It,
Uh,
is that because you had I think you had some former inmates that contributed money towards it?
Lucky Luciano, the mobster, he was, uh, he donated the Appalachian oak for the pews.
Mm.
I mean, you have stained glass that was done by a forger. The craftsmen come in and teach the convicts, or inmates, their trade, teach them the skills, and they would do it. They would do the work, stone cutting, masonry, carpentry, even the stained glass was done by a forger, and it's all documented. It's irreplaceable. There are behind the altar, this will be very clear in the video link that I'll send to you. There are two hand-carved planks behind the altar from Magellan's ship.
Yeah, that's you wrote about that in the book.
Yes, and so when you just can't, when you step inside of it, you realize that none of this can be replaced. It can never be replicated. Well, it may be able to replicate, but it can't be replaced.
Mhm.
It's incredible, and it is a very special place. I don't care what faith you are. The history is just incredible,
Wow.
just incredible, and that's one of the unique features of that facility. But back to the yard, the prison yard is huge. It's covered. It's surrounded has 5 wall posts. And in my book, I talk about firing a warning shot from wall post 12 back in June of '98.
Yeah.
And so it's the only prison yard like it in the world. The inmates can cook. They can own a piece of property. Basically, they have almost like a title to it. Until they get in trouble, then it goes back up to others can get it. But they can get firewood. They can they can cook. They play football, softball, soccer. We used to have a ski jump.
Yeah, now okay, why?
Why not? If
Did you
you're
have a prisoner that did ski jumping or something?
you're in extreme northern New York in the winter, what else you gonna do? But and the ice skate, what have you, and it's. But the ski jump was tore down. I believe it was 89 or 90. I think it was 90. I don't recall. But it's so unique. There's so many different things that you would never believe would take place.
But so in the mini series, the only thing they really got right was the North Block,
The North Yard.
North
North,
Yard.
that's the
And
only thing.
when you say it's huge, how is it compared to a football field?
Football field is the ball field is just a small aspect of it.
How
it's
many football fields would it be?
about 5 or 6 acres in size.
Wow. Okay.
And
All
it's
right.
divided. You have the ball field on the lower level where the inmates line up when it's time to go into the prison, inside the facility for the mess hall or for the bathhouse or or to line up to go return back to the blocks. You have the court section is where they can have their piece of property. They can grow vegetables, cook. They can just hang out, whatever they want to do. And you have the basketball, handball courts at the upper level. So, and it's all fenced off due to riots over the years, so we can control it better if there's an incident.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what was so wrong with the way the facility was being run by then that it made it possible for this infamous escape to occur?
Well, Superintendent Reset was the superintendent at the time of the escape. He was handed a mess. He was placed in that position to correct the mistakes of his predecessor, who was shown the door. Having worked for his predecessor, I literally beat my head against a wall for quite some time. I'd known he was a sergeant when I first started. So went through the ranks. He did appreciate my work ethic. And I was a workhorse. I worked circles around most of my peers. I like to knock the work out and move on to other things. That's why he asked me to take promotion there a number of times, and I refused. But he dreaded any phone call from the central office. So many issues that need to be addressed amongst the inmate population or amongst the employees weren't getting addressed. From my point of view, it appeared that he took a stick his head in the sand and waited out type of approach, rather than being decisive, head things head on. You don't take a little spark and wait for it to grow into a wildfire. Stomp it out, don't revisit it, and be done with it. That wasn't taking place. Even the inmate liaison committee, they have representatives that are elected by other inmates, their block or their housing unit. They are represented, they're elected, and they meet with the superintendent periodically. They voice concerns, possibly get issues addressed, what have you. They refused at one point to meet with the superintendent. They said, all he's going to do is lie to us.
Yeah, because he wasn't addressing anything.
Exactly. And I don't know if he's over his head. He just didn't really know he was, doing such a bad job. I do know that the central office was aware of how poorly things were being run. I'm fully aware of that. But I do know that they said they had a number of things on their plate and they would address it when they had time. That's the message filtered back to me. I guess, so after the escape, I said to one individual, do you think they would have listened to that stupid Lieutenant Blaine? And they just shook their head. You think so? But I know when the inmates were refusing to meet with the superintendent, at that point, the central office had sent one of the people up, and I believe it was an assistant commissioner. I don't recall exactly who it was. But they spoke with the superintendent. And from what I was told after the fact, he even lied to them. So all these things kept snowballing. So finally, spring of 2014, I've had it. I've absolutely had it with the place. I don't like the way things are going. I have a captain. I won't take another promotion. I had been offered promotion 22 times. I kept refusing it. I had a supervisor that was problematic, who resented my work ethic and my ability to handle things. And because I'm a disciplinarian.
Yeah.
I'm a disciplinarian. Grown men understand consequences.
Yeah, if they break the rules, they gotta.
Exactly. And I was doing the disciplinary hearings for my shift. I didn't have to because there's a lieutenant that does that, but I enjoyed doing them because I could put my finger on the pulse of the facility and I could find out what was taking place.
Is that why you kept refusing the promotions?
I refused promotion for a number of reasons.
Because couldn't you have been promoted to the place where you would have been the superintendent and done things the right way?
Actually, I was offered a position, a special position, but I initially said yes to, but I turned it down 2 weeks later. I called back, and but taking the position of captain, you go from being, you're still in the security ranks, but you go from, running the joint, you're going administrative, your management. I lose a lot of union protections. I lose my overtime. I lose my shift differentials. I lose a lot of money. I can't get overtime. I can't swap shifts, which is how I got all my time off to perform all around the country. So there was too many negatives.
Okay.
But the one time I said yes, I have been tapped. I've been recruited to help create the Prison Rape Elimination Act program. And I asked, why me? Why do I get this honor? They said, and they told me, they said, well, number one, we know we have to treat you right. You have your time and you can retire anytime you choose. So we have to treat you right. But you're on the promotion list, and anybody else that's on that promotion list has no jail experience, or they may have a year or two. You have 26 or 20 at the time 25 years in uniform, in prison.
Yeah.
You're the person that can look at something immediately and say, this is going to work, or no, it's not.
Yeah.
So they said, I said, okay, this sounds interesting. I go, give me the outline of your program. And they said, well, this is what it's going to be. I go, it's not going to work. Well, that's why we need you.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, my captain was still trying to torment me and what have you. So I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be leaving in a year or less. I'm going to pound the overtime for one more year, drive up my retirement, and I'm going to torture him. And I did. So I still laugh about it to this day. And so do my friends.
Okay, so the really fascinating part of the book for me was the inside look at the daily life of a correctional officer and their point of view on things. And because in movies and TV, we're always getting the inmate's point of view or the lawyers, or but rarely the prison guards. And I think most American citizens really don't understand this part well either. So, I mean, that's why it's a good idea to read the book. But just briefly, I mean, we give into the stereotype that you've got the fat, slovenly guard who just bangs his baton across the barred cells. How would you characterize the average corrections officer and the training that he or she undertakes to get to that point?
Well, I can speak for my training. I mean, my class went through the Harriman Training Academy, Harriman, New York. Started June 27th of '88, and I wasn't even 21 yet. I didn't turn 21 to my third week. So I kept my mouth shut because technically I wasn't old enough to be there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Well, I thought you beat it by a couple of days, that you had your birthday in time.
The initial physical, where I had to be 20 years and 9 months. I was 20 years, 9 months, and 9 days, the day of my physical.
Here's a picture, by the way.
That's me. Yep, that's me in the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
Back when I was pretty. So we were professional. As you can see that picture, we're only a couple weeks into the training in that picture, because we're wearing our gray uniform, our Class B, and then got graduated to our Class A's later in training. But we're professionals. The average officer is a professional, a highly trained professional. But unfortunately, prison is a reflection of society. if the way Clinton is now, anybody with any seniority has retired. They can't wait to get out. The place that when I was an officer there, you'd see guys come out with stripes and stars. Everyone's 5 years. So you could have showing 20 years on the stripes. Then you could see 20 or 25 years of stars.
Wow.
5 years. I can't imagine that. But there was pride. No, we had a pride. There was a history of pride. People did their jobs. And this is how I explained it to staff. Everybody's a cog in the wheel. We're all cog. That wheel will keep on turning. Little oil here, a little grease. As long as everybody does that little bit every day, the machine keeps running. So, but they're professionals. They're New York State peace officers. So you have police and you have peace officers because we can carry off-duty weapons, what have you. We're entrusted deadly physical force. We have a lot of responsibilities. So the thought of dragging a baton across bars, just tormenting inmates, nothing could be further from the truth. It's an absolute, the depiction in the miniseries was a slap in the face to every single employee, actually the whole North Country, because it showed like pretty impoverished, a lot of poverty. That's in fat slobs, dumb people can't put together complete sentences, spitting in inmate's face, all these different things, completely misrepresented. It doesn't happen.
Now, I know when you, in the beginning of the book, you talked about how Clinton had, that was like, if you could be a prison guard at Clinton, that was the top of the pile in terms of correctional facilities in New York State.
Yes, and like I said in the book, it's the facility by which I judged all others.
Uh-huh.
I really did. The day I made lieutenant, it was the first day I made lieutenant. I was down in a facility in New York City, and my deputy superintendent came by, and he's standing in my doorway, going like this, just looking. And I said, "Can I help you, sir?" Now this is the same facility I'd been promoted to sergeant back in 2004, the same exact facility. And he's just looking. And he goes, "I'm just thinking." I go, "Well, what can I help you with?" He goes, "Well, we're screwing up the urinalysis, drug testing." "How are we screwing it up?" And he says, "Well, it's not getting done." I said, "Well, why?" He goes, "Well, the forms, this, that." I said, "I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "I hate saying it because I hate when people say it to me, but in Clinton, we do it this way." And he goes, "I find myself saying that all the time too. In my facility, I want to say, well, this is how we used to do it there because we were both transients."
Uh-huh.
So I told him I'd take care of it. I got on the phone. I knew who to call because in this facility, nothing was ever done properly by the book, paperwork. It was all, "Hey, I need this." I called the maintenance guy. I said, "Hey, it's Blaine, Lieutenant Blaine." He goes, "You're back." He goes, "You transferred back." I go, "No, I got promoted." "Oh my God." The guy was happy. I go, "This is what I need. I need 2 bins. I need this and this." He goes, "I know where I can get them." Within an hour and a half, I had the whole process fixed. The next morning, the man came in. His jaw hit the floor. He goes, "How'd you get this done?" "You just gotta know who to call." I go, "Nothing here runs right, and once you understand that, you can work around it."
Okay. Is there any movie or TV show that comes close to getting the life of a guard right? I know I mentioned a couple to you, but I don't.
Well, yes. I mean, we discussed The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption.
Mhm.
You can also throw in a little bit of Escape at Alcatraz. I've been to Alcatraz, and that movie was very, very well done. All 3 movies were well done. I'd say it's a mix of all of them.
Okay.
People don't understand, as a block officer, you are dealing with inmates all the time. All the time. You're the mayor. You could be an electrician. You could be justice of the peace. You're a mailman. You could, you're a secretary, a clerk. You're everything. It's so many jobs into one. And there's a lot of stress. There is a lot of stress. And in the book, I talk about how there's certain jobs at Clinton. If you can do those, you can go anywhere and shine. Upper F block, first man on day shift. Oh my God, it's a zoo, in and out, nonstop. The count desk, working out front in the watch commander's office. The officer handling the movement of the inmates in and out of the facility. Cell moves to this area, that area. Program changes, all kinds of things. Also, amongst all this, if an alarm is sounded, you're the one sending help. There's three people in that office, or three sergeant, watch commander, but you also have your officers there. So you're working together, emergencies, and there could be emergency trips, all these different things. So you have the chart sergeant, the day shift chart sergeant, assistant watch commander, probably one of the most thankless jobs New York State has to offer. Anybody that takes that job has my respect for life, because it is just crazy.
The chart sergeant?
Assignment sergeant. We call them the chart sergeant. They are the assistant watch commander. They're responsible for all the job assignments of staff. And
do they switch around a lot?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Do the job assignments switch around a lot? You're not, how long are you in a particular assignment?
Well, you can have a bid job. You could, by virtue of your seniority, you can bid on a job, and you're there until you want to get out of it. And then there's you have those jobs, so the job's always changing. Then you have people swapping jobs, swapping shifts. And then you have what's called a resource pool of your daily people that are kind of like your standby people filling different positions.
Mm-hmm.
You have your vacation relief people filling people's vacations when they're gone. And so it can get very complex, very messed up. And plus, you got to figure out, you have people swaps, you have people calling in sick, you have people with scheduled days off, regular days off, you have people with personal leave, vacation days. And in the middle of all this, you have the emergencies. And I haven't even begun to scratch the surface, and you're shaking your head already.
I know. It's yeah.
So the depiction in these movies of people sitting at a desk, like a Green Mile, sitting at a desk,
waiting for things to go wrong.
Yeah, no. We have our downtime, but there is so much to do. It's a whole city behind a wall. Mm-hmm. You have a commissary, basically going to the store. You have a facility hospital, so there's medical treatment. You have industry, so people going to work in jobs. You have school. You have vocational and academic school, and then you have work crews cutting lawns or shoveling snow or working out in the yard or sweeping the hallways. There's always something. The place is a buzz. So If anybody, the only ones sitting in a cell are the ones for discipline or what we call limited privileges, because they refuse to accept an assignment. Mm-hmm. So their wings are kind of clipped for a while, and they're pretty much treated as a discipline case. Uh-huh. But no.
Wow. Mm.
A little different than you anticipated, isn't it?
Yeah. An interesting side note in the book, because this is really, I think this is more a personal memoir of your years at Clinton, concerns your second job, that of a professional entertainer who uses hypnosis for comedy, would you say? I watched your YouTube video.
I've got about 400 videos on YouTube. Yeah, I always wanted to be a hypnotist as a kid. Always wanted.
You were a little kid?
I was a kid. I loved comic books. I loved to read. And and back in every comic book, there's always a little ad, learn how to hypnotize. I
No,
never
yeah.
went away for it. And so, but my uncle later became my uncle's in Michigan, a hypnotherapist. He was a nurse anesthetist, but he also a hypnotherapist. And so I got my interest there. And then throughout time, studied, and I got certified through the National Guild of Hypnotists. I received my basic, my advanced, and my master certification through another organization. And I learned very quickly I didn't enjoy doing hypnotherapy. I love trance, I loved hypnosis, but I would fool around with it with people. I get asked to do something at a party or what have you. I started getting phone calls. Would you do our Christmas party? Okay.
So that's how it developed. How old were you when you got certified?
Oh, God, I would have been, my basic certification probably would have been back in 90, I'm, probably 90.
Or how old were,
I'm going to guess 25, 26.
okay, so 5 or 6 years after you started being a prison guard.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. And I really started getting into it. And I said, hey, this is the easiest thing I've ever learned. I mean, because the further I went, it was just rolling and rolling. And I'm like, this is the easiest thing I ever learned. For me, I found my thing in life.
Uh-huh. So in all of your studies for the hypnotism, did it help you in knowing how to, I'm not saying you hypnotize, I know you didn't hypnotize inmates to make them be compliant, but did it help you in diffusing situations or understanding people better?
Yes, you can use those skills. You don't need to put somebody in a trance. You can simply talk. You can use nonverbal communication. You can use neurolinguistic programming, NLP, which is a very incredible tool, which you touch when you scratch the surface of it through my hypnotherapy training. And you can, through someone's speech patterns, through their eye indexing cues, body language, everything, and just non-verbally, you can develop an unconscious rapport with people. You can read them, and you can develop the unconscious rapport. As you talk to them, they feel very comfortable with you, and you can do amazing things. And I've done that on many, many occasions. A prime example was there was a weekend, and I know a sergeant had brought up an individual, a Dominican man from a block for some reason up to the mental health unit. I happened to be working there that morning. And the guy was very, very, very agitated. And I could tell he was from the Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
So I started talking to him, and I said, where are you from? Dominica. Geez, I just put on an act. I said, guy, could you talk a little lower? I go, I got a headache. Can you talk a little lower? It was Dominica. I go, do you play good baseball player? Yeah. So now I got, he was ready to tear everybody apart a few minutes earlier. Mm-hmm. He's handcuffed. He's waiting to be interviewed by a mental health nurse and probably placed in the observation unit. And which I was going to be working that afternoon. That was my regular job at afternoons. Mm-hmm. So he was very agitated. What it is, you meet someone at their level and you slowly bring them down. Next thing you know, he's talking to me just like this. He's telling me, about all his baseball experience and how good he is, what have you. And I told him, I said, they're going to take you in there and the nurse is going to speak with you. Can you, don't be mean. She's doing her job. Mm-hmm. She's going to probably send you over to me. I'll be working this afternoon. I'll take good care of you. Just call it a vacation for a few days. I'll take good care of you. You have a good dinner, a good sleep. Okay.
Did you ever share any of these insights or these techniques with your fellow guards?
Well, they watched it happen. And they're all like, they're looking like this.
Yeah, but did you explain to them after what you did and how you did it so they could also?
They didn't ask. They were just, well, you gotta understand, you're in a maximum security prison, the biggest one in New York State, and you're a hypnotist. And everybody knows you're a hypnotist. And so there's that level of apprehension about
Yeah, they
getting.
don't want you putting them under.
So I would joke with them about it, and it would weird them out a lot of times. Fear of the unknown is a wonderful thing.
But
And
don't you think that would be something useful to teach for de-escalating situations? I mean, you could go around to police departments and help them.
well, well, police are actually trained in diffusing a lot of things. Society right now is very messed up. Like I said, even the prison system, what have you, they've taken like at Clinton, um, I mean, assaults and what have you that have would have warranted special housing at a time in excess of a year or two is getting a slap on the wrist, maybe a couple months, and these were unheard of acts. You know, I'm not a fan of our governor, of New York State Governor Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
His father was the governor
Mm-hmm.
when I went into the system, and that's when the system exploded with growth. Exploded. They had to literally build prisons overnight to accommodate all the inmates.
Yeah.
And it appears that this governor is hell bent on having those same prisons torn down or closed. He, you know, and they're releasing inmates into the system, and it's the wrong thing to do. It's just the wrong thing to do.
Okay, hold it. Now, did you say you never married, or you are married?
I'm,
You're married?
I'm divorced twice.
Okay, all right. Because I know that in the video I watched, your son or something introduced. Yeah. Okay.
He was 8 years old. He's now very successful in California. 27
Cool.
years old.
Good.
He works in Silicon Valley. He's killing it, and I'm very proud.
Yeah. You know, you noted in your book how shocked you were at learning during training that 85% of prison guards who are married end up getting divorced. Now,
that was a hard-hitting fact. That was very hard.
Did you quite believe it at the time?
Not at all.
No.
No.
How do you account for it? Is it all the stress?
There is a lot of stress, but I had an outlet.
Yeah, you did.
I had an outlet. I mean, if you saw my date book from years gone by, you'd say, when did you sleep? Because when I went to the prison, I was doing double shifts all the time to get my time off to go on the road. I'd take the whole summer off and perform at fairs around the country. Plus, I mean, all these corporate events and what have you, it was incredible. Incredible. It was actually mind blowing, and I almost resigned for a number of years. Every summer I'd come back and say, I'm working 2 weeks for this. Doesn't make sense, but I stuck it out, and I'm enjoying the reward now. But
was that hard on the marriage?
The first one, not really. I didn't think so. There were a number of issues.
Okay.
She had some childhood issues. There was, detailed in the book. Another individual came into the picture, all kinds of different things. But like during the summer, I traveled as a family, worked together because we had goals. We had a lot of goals, and actually, when we split, we were within 6 weeks, I think, or less of all of our goals coming together. But the second one, I'll be very honest, I had a prenup. I learned from the first one, I had a prenup. We had a great relationship, fantastic relationship. But we screwed it up after 6.5 years by getting married. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to talk for a minute. You put a lot of emphasis, and I think this is one of the big things that led to the escape, was on the dangers of staff and inmate interaction. Uh, it seems to me, of course, as you described, everything a guard has to do every day. He's always running here and there, doing all kinds of things. But it would seem to me that if you could make shorter hours in certain places, there wouldn't be as much opportunity for extended interaction. If you kept moving them around,
Well,
or
remember,
how would you solve the problem?
it's a city. It's a city. So if you're going to the tailor shop, you're probably getting there about just before 9 o'clock after you run the mess hall, and you're there till about 2:30. Could be late, quarter to 2:30. So you're there, but you're with that same group. But that's a very important
Yeah,
tool.
my point is though, if you cut that in half, so you're not there from 9 to 2:30, you're there from 9 to 11, say, there's not as much opportunity for them to get used to you, to get and weasel in and try and.
You're looking at it differently. It's important to have that same individual having contact with them, because now you can identify when something's askew, when something's not right.
Okay.
So it's it's how we gather intelligence. It's how you know your inmates. They know you. They know what's expected of you.
Now that's good for the guards. What about the civilian employees? That's what I'm saying. With the civilian.
But it's also important for the security staff to know who they're working with, so you can identify unusual behavior, what have you. Joyce Mitchell was the exception to the rule. I never dreamed that somebody would go to the extremes that she did to assist these individuals in the escape. And she could have stopped it at any time with one word to a staff member, phone call, anything. I don't believe her story at all. She could have stopped everything, and she never would have seen those inmates again.
Was she in love with one of them or something?
I know people that know her very well. She's got a very unusual past. Okay. And I believe my personal feeling, she got caught up in a whirlwind fantasy world, found herself in a position. She knows she's going to get fired if she gets found out. She just, I think she enjoyed the physical aspect. To what extent, we'll never know the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a terrible, terrible thing what she did. But I believe that I never dreamed that'd be possible at Clinton Correctional. You have people that are less than stellar employees, but for that to take place, I never would have dreamed.
Now, you made a point that it was pretty clear from the evidence afterwards that the pipe had been cut from the outside.
And the cut was incredibly clean cut.
Yeah.
Who do
you think did it? I mean, who were?
We speculate. Everybody that works there, everybody in the region speculates. It's funny how everybody.
I mean, do you think it was they had connections outside and they did it, or they somehow got word to have a facility, city workers come in and do this, thinking it was a job order for the prison?
No, that part was cut on the inside of the wall. So the speculation and the consistent rumor, story, account is that a contractor, there had been a lot of work in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Like they wanted to check the integrity of the pipes. So they put a camera in. And so supposedly they cut a nice, neat section. They took it off. They ran the cameras through. They never sealed it back up. Now, why didn't they? Word on the street is the state is always very slow to pay its bills. Very, very slow. And it's well documented. That's been a huge problem for years contractors literally pick up. We'll come back and finish the job when you pay us.
Ah, okay.
And and that was, it's been in the papers. There's countless news stories of how much interest the state pays on late bills. It's crazy. And so that's how the initial hole got cut. The hole to get out, okay, supposedly inmates sweat inside of an 18-inch pipe. Inside of an 18-inch pipe. Do I have a ruler? I do have a ruler. That's only a foot. That's a foot. So we have a foot. So let's add another 6 inches. So we're going to go from here. So here to about here. About there.
Yeah.
In a pipe. How are you going to? Okay. He's going to supposedly take a piece of hacksaw blade and cut from the inside.
No.
The outside, the hole where they came out is not nice and neat. It is kind of all over, like you would expect. How was it cut? But there's more things. They determined that the inmates went out through the manhole cover. That really doesn't make much sense because they had a clear line of sight to the powerhouse. Mm-hmm. It was midnights, minimal skeleton staff. But in the book, I talk about how different sources had indicated about how in the manhole, you have the manhole cover. It has a chain that comes down and secures it to a ladder.
Right.
Well, if you're in the manhole and you got this chain you have to cut, are you going to cut the chain real close to you, the link next to you, to set that manhole cover loose? Or are you going to scrape your knuckles and cut it up nice and high? Sure. Yeah. That link was cut. This was left.
Right. Yeah.
But yet they found toenail and fingernail clippers wedging it up underneath. So did somebody come through with a battery operated or what have you, sawzall? It's elevated, give it a little quick zip. Who knows? Yeah. But the public doesn't know about that. It all got sweat.
Now, do correctional programs differ from state to state?
Yes.
Do you kind of keep up with it? Do you talk to other?
No,
I'm only familiar with New York.
I have friends in the federal system. Inmates much prefer to do federal time than state time. The Fed print the money, so but they have more. They just prefer it. They say it's much easier time in state. Mm. But basically, they're all the same. They have an industry. They have academic and vocational needs that have to be met. So they're pretty much the same. But it just all depends what other programs they implement. Could be self-help groups, peer counseling, all kinds of different things. Which Clinton had some of those as well. Do
you think it's good to have each state have their own way of doing things, or should there be a federal way that just?
Well, actually, there is. The facilities are federally accredited, so they have standards they have to meet. So there is a standard, but you have to remember, not only every facility has a different flavor. They're pretty much on the same page. They're very much on the same page because they have the same statewide needs that have to be met, but it has a different flavor. But every state is different too. Yeah. So what may work with New York probably isn't going to work with Louisiana, because Louisiana way of doing things isn't going to work for New York, or even Vermont is a very different system. So in California prisons, oh my God, they're riddled with gang violence and issues. Yeah. So, but geographically, everything's different. So you have to tailor it to your needs. But as their central offices, as their governor allows it to happen.
Yeah, and I get the idea that you think that the governor ought to trust the prisons to do their thing and not get in the way so much. Is that right?
Well, yes, they have bound the hands of the superintendents, and that's what happened with the superintendent at Clinton at the time of the escape, Superintendent Reset. He had a major incident in the yard, requested the facility be locked down and searched, let it cool off and search. It does two things. One, you're sweeping the place for weapons, drugs, and whatever else you can find, which they would have undoubtedly uncovered the escape. That was all brewing. They would have found it because they were searching tunnels. Because the tunnels over the years, the schedule had been slowed down and spaced out, and through budget cuts and staffing changes and what have you. Now they're back to a regular schedule, and there's been a lot of upgrades.
That's good.
So that's not going to happen again. But had Superintendent Reset been allowed to shut his facility down and then say, hey, this is what I did, we got to do this, they wouldn't have had this escape.
Yeah.
But because they bind their hands, where you have someone 150, 200 miles away calling the shots, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay. Well, let's see. Sorry, my son's closing up.
Fine.
I don't know if I want to ask these last two questions because they kind of go beyond the scope of your book. But I'll ask one of them. With the COVID-19, what do you think prison officials should do to keep the spread of the virus down among prison populations, or do they just let it go?
Well, what they've done doesn't make sense. They've released inmates into society. That's completely self-serving.
Have they released all levels or just so-called white-collar criminals?
Oh, no, they're everything. You've got everybody getting released. Yes, they're getting closer to their time, what have you, but they're a danger to society. And look, all you have to do is look at the New York Post or the Daily News, follow the crime, or Google it. Released inmates committing crimes. Why? They took advantage of a pandemic. They took advantage of it to achieve their self-serving liberal goals of releasing inmates back to society. And these are the people that are committing the crimes. You look at the riots in New York City, and you find that there's released inmates there, and what have you. It's in. If you follow the news at all, they're announcing it. Now, if a mask can be imposed on you and I, why don't they just give these guys masks?
I don't know.
Why are you?
Well, because I guess they think they can fashion them into something to do mischief in some form or another.
Yeah, so I don't agree with these measures, and it's just a self-serving thing to achieve their political goals and to appease their radical left. We're getting into politics, but I just don't agree with it. What has an individual achieved? I mean, I'm not a judge, jury, or executioner. I'm just a civilian now. I have a career, but inmates behave in a prison because any criminal, they know of consequences. If I do this and I get caught, there's consequences to it.
Right.
So,
what happens though if, for example, a big fire breaks out in a prison? What do you do in that case?
Fire? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, first of all, you pray it doesn't happen on your shift. So that's one thing. But I never had a fire. I had just about every type of incident, but I never had a fire in my tour. But we have a fire brigade. We have fire and safety officers. Their fire and safety inspections are done every shift in every area. So there's visual inspections and accountability, and there's a form every single shift. And if those aren't handed in, watch commander gets a list of the ones that weren't handed in. You get on the phone. You might have to peel some butt. I need these. Get them done. Okay. And but there's a lot of. I mean, we have evacuations. You're trained for evacuations. Blocks have fire hoses. They got smoke ejectors. You have evacuation plans. There's a lot of measures, and part of that is during the cell searches is searching for unauthorized flammable materials.
Yeah. Like,
so, sorry.
Like masks.
Oh,
No, I mean, that's probably one reason they wouldn't give them masks.
Well, the thing is, this is what I've told people. I'm not a fan of the mask thing. I'm just not a fan of it because we can debate it all night long. But I said, from the moment I went in the prison system, I was subjected to HIV and AIDS probably every day because it was so rampant. Then multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. I've been exposed to TB so many times because they do tracking and they track you down and they find out if you were exposed to it or not. I've been tested for TB so many times, and then we had to get vaccinated against hepatitis B or B, Hep B. We had to get our vaccinations for that. And I said, I've seen things they don't have a name for yet. So I'm not, unfortunately, I have a friend of mine recently passed away, a retired captain. He was a great man. He just passed away. He's a cop, retired from the state, became a cop in South Carolina. He just passed away from COVID. I don't know if he had any underlying conditions, but there's two extremes to this virus. And I feel that the governors are taking advantage of it and jeopardizing the law-abiding taxpayer by it.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Michael.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope you enjoy the book, and I hope your customers do as well. And
yeah,
if they have any questions, they can feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, and remember, you can buy a copy of The Invisible Walls of Dannemora from our store or order it through our website using the link that will be on the end of this recording. And you'll get a follow-up email with both of those links.
And I'll send you a link to the Church of St. Dismas. That video is incredible, and I'm looking forward to your response to that. What do you think?
Yeah, do, and I may include that into my email to the people who registered too.
I actually appreciate that. I very much appreciate that because it's something that should be shared with the world.
Okay.
That's special.
And okay, I was going to I'll remind you, do you have a local independent bookstore where you are?
Actually, I deal with a number of them. There's one in Plattsburgh, an independent bookstore, and they've had nothing but a difficult time through this period.
Tomorrow is Independent Bookstore Day all over the country. It's the best time for you to go to your local independent bookstore. They'll be offering, if they're participating, and many of them are, they'd be offering special merchandise and activities just for that day. We are, I know. So I would encourage you to show your support. They usually do that in April, but because of the coronavirus, we had to put everything off. Anyway, go to your local indie bookstore tomorrow and show your support. And thanks again, Michael. Good luck in all of, he's working on another book. So you can get in touch with me again when you're ready to push that.
I'm laying the groundwork. It should be very interesting. I'm hoping I can properly document my experience doing forensic hypnosis, taking victims or eyewitnesses back in time to relive crimes.
That will be cool. That sounds like a cool book.
Another aspect of hypnosis I enjoyed.
All right.
It's intense.
Thank you. Stay safe and stay well.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Bye.